Before he became the keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, he was a Gryffindor, a half-giant misunderstood by other students for his fascination with magical creatures, especially the dangerous ones. In this episode, we follow the difficult, complicated life of a man caught between two worlds. This is the story of Rubeus Hagrid.
Welcome back, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs. I was, No. Of course, this is not an unlicensed, extremely rare variant of Ukrainian Iron Belly egg obtained by dubious means. But enough about dragons. For today, that is not our subject. Today, we will speak of a giant, or rather, someone who is half giant and half not. Someone who faced childhood and adolescence with a tremendous weight on his shoulders, and who, despite it all, became the kind and loyal heart of Hogwarts. But why keep the suspense? It's all in the title anyway. You know already, I speak of Rubeus Hagrid, son of a muggle, and the giantess Fridwulfa. Hagrid endured a difficult adolescence, full of misunderstandings, and with the opening of the Chamber of Secrets, his expulsion from school. A harsh blow for someone who loved that castle above all else. And imagine the scene. Expelled, but I was only trying to care for a deadly man-eating Acromantula. But destiny, as we know, had another path in store for him. Keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. How we all know Rubeus Hagrid now. Are you eager to hear his story?
In the West Country of England, where the land softens into ancient woodland and the air seems to hold on to older stories, a slight wizard known only to a few as Mr. Hagrid lived a quiet life at the margins of the wizarding world. Unfortunately, very little is known about his life up to that point, though a few things can be pieced together. For instance, it is highly likely that Mr. Hagrid had attended the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and that he was, by all accounts, a great admirer of the famed magizoologist Newt Scamander. In fact, much like Scamander himself, Mr. Hagrid appears to have been a scholar of fantastic beasts. Others tell a different story, portraying him more as an eccentric student of alchemy, obsessed with the writings of Nicholas Flamel. What is certain, however, is that, unlike both Flamel and Scamander, Hagrid's name carried little to no recognition. Perhaps it would be more accurate to say none at all, and it did not seem to trouble him in the slightest. He preferred the intimacy of his work, far removed from the noisy chatter of people and from the chaos that the dark wizard Gellert Grindelwald had by then spread across the continent and beyond. For some time, his studies had led Mr. Hagrid into the Forest of Dean, where sightings of rare beasts were often reported and just as often dismissed. It was there, among roots and shadowed undergrowth, that he began to notice something else. Disturbances in the pattern of the forest, trees broken at heights too great for any known animal, ground pressed into impressions far larger than any human step.
Something's wrong.
For weeks, he followed them deeper into the woodland until the forest stopped pretending. And so at last he saw her, a giantess moving between the trees, as though the forest had been arranged around her rather than the other way round. Her name, he would later learn, was Fridwulfa. Most would have fled. Hagrid did not, because one thing above all was clear to him. The giantess was bleeding, in pain, and the wizard, carefully, helped her.
Let me help you.
He treated the injury as best he could, returning to her more than once, always at the same place in the forest. Over time, the threat in her presence dulled into something quieter. She did not welcome him, but she allowed him to remain, and little by little, a bond began to form, not spoken, not defined, simply lived in repeated encounters beneath the canopy of the Forest of Dean. And then, as these things sometimes happen in the hidden corners of the world, something new entered their lives, a child. He was born of two worlds that did not naturally belong together. His father held him with a kind of stunned reverence, as though unsure how something so unlikely could exist in his hands and still be real. and he would name him Rubeus. In Latin, it means red. But to Mr. Hagrid, it meant far more than that. The rubedo, according to the principles of alchemy set forth by Nicholas Flamel, the final stage of the great work. The red phase, following the negredo and the albedo. The moment in which all transmutations find their end, and base matter is brought to completion. Red was considered by alchemists to stand between white and black, between light and darkness. And the rubedo marked the reconciliation of opposites, the closing of the circle. A union of two worlds that were never meant to become one, that of the wizard Hagrid and the giantess Fridwulfa.
Oh, my valiant adventurers, I bring you news that shines brighter than any Loomis. 3 enchanted tiers: Curious Wanderer, Enchanted Explorer, and Master Adventurer. The room of requirement? Nothing but a broom cupboard in comparison. With us, you'll gain early access to every episode, a secret Discord server to keep you ahead of everyone else, and that's not all. Priority replies to your comments, a direct channel to help you choose new content together, and even exclusive wallpapers taken from each episode. And it doesn't stop there. For the bravest among you, extra videos with my director's notes and reflections on the episodes already released. Because, let's be honest, you can never get enough of your dashing wizard adventurer Quentin Pettigrew. Click join below for all the details. Joining the Spellbook family is a small gesture that supports our journey and allows us to bring content truly worthy of our audience. So thank you sincerely from the bottom of our hearts for being here. And you muggles listening in, I beg you tell me, what on Merlin's beard is a Discord server supposed to be?
From his earliest years, Rubeus Hagrid did not fit within the bounds of ordinary childhood. Objects broke too easily in his hands. Doorways seemed to tighten around him. And yet, within the small home at the edge of the Forest of Dean, none of it was seen as a flaw. Mr. Hagrid raised Rubeus with love, even when the child became too strong for his age, too large for his years. He would only smile at the uniqueness of his son.
Do not be ashamed of what you are,
he would say. Fridwulfa, however, could not look at the child through anything other than the eyes of a giant, eyes capable only of seeing a small, fragile creature, too small, too breakable. She remained cold, distant, and silent, until, when Rubeus was 3, she left.
Fridwulfa?
One day she was there, the next she was not. A wound the child carried without understanding, but one that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Too small for a giant, too large for a human, and always the same unspoken question. What was the half-giant Rubeus Hagrid meant to be? Fridwulfa, he would discover many years later, had returned to the mountains, to those of her own kind, leaving the world of men behind once and for all. In the years that followed, Rubeus grew quickly, faster than anyone could easily explain. But within him also grew a sensitivity to what others ignored. Thanks to his father and a love for nature, the boy developed an instinct for the overlooked and for all those creatures feared or despised. With the passing of days and seasons, however, a quiet concern began to form in his father. Rubeus was close to 10, and still, magic had not revealed itself in him. No sparks, no levitation, nothing out of the ordinary beyond his size and strength. What if he never became a wizard? Mr. Hagrid personally did not care, but as he grew older, he knew it would matter to Rubeus. The answer to that question came by owl that same year. A letter of admission to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And so the boy understood that there was a special place waiting for him. A place for him where perhaps he could finally find his own place in the world. And for young Rubeus Hagrid, that was enough. Enough to burst with joy and lift his old father clean off the ground, carrying him on his shoulders, a moment whose memory would remain with him for the rest of his life.
Dolores, Attention, attention, breaking news! The brand new Spellbook Shop has finally opened its doors. In our shop, you'll find treasures to make even the shadiest nocturne alley merchant green with envy. T-shirts, posters, booklets, and much, much more. To visit the shop, click on the tab above, follow the link in our bio, or head to the store section of our YouTube channel. Or was it YouTube? YouTube. That bizarre muggle contraption, you know what I mean. And let it be known, dear viewers, your support means the world. Every purchase helps sustain our channel, letting us share new stories and fresh content. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Spellbook family.
Of clumsiness, spiders, and expulsion.
It was the autumn of 1940, with the wizarding world already engulfed in war, when the young Hagrid first crossed the threshold of the place he would one day call home. During the sorting ceremony, the hat hesitated a moment longer than usual, perhaps intrigued by the singular nature of the boy before it. Worlds that seemed so distant, converging within him, and yet a striking simplicity, a kind of courage that required no explanation. In the end, there were few doubts left for the hat. Lessons began, and with them, it quickly became clear that magic was something not so natural for the young Hagrid. What his classmates managed with ease required from him a greater effort, with wand movements always a little clumsy, as if the connection between intent and execution refused to align. With theoretical subjects, things were no better. Long passages of magical lore and historical precedent slipped through his memory almost as soon as he read them. It did not take long for Rubeus to become an easy target for Slytherin laughter. So large, so awkward in movement. What on earth was someone like him doing at Hogwarts? Many would ask themselves. And yet, just as some could not fail to notice something else in Hagrid, a gentleness, a kind of innocence toward the world, eyes carrying a rare ability to see the better side of everything, a good heart, perhaps too good a heart. A quality that the then Transfiguration Professor, Albus Dumbledore, valued far more than magical dexterity. If Rubeus struggled in potions and charms, the situation was very different in herbology. But even more so in care of magical creatures, where the young Gryffindor excelled from the very first lesson.
Well done, Mr. Hagrid.
Perhaps through something inherited from his father, or perhaps through the natural disposition he had carried since childhood, Hagrid seemed able to communicate with creatures better than any other student, perhaps even better than his own teachers. During those lessons, the young Gryffindor discovered the existence of beasts that surpassed anything he had ever imagined. Fire crabs, three-headed dogs, centaurs, and dragons. Oh, how many kinds of dragons there were. Hebridean black, Hungarian horntail, Romanian longhorn, Norwegian ridgeback. Just thinking about their sheer presence made Rubeus's eyes light up. One day, he would see them all. Of that, he was certain. Rubeus felt light-hearted in those days, lighter than he had been in a long while. But as so often happens, tragedy looms precisely when we are least willing to accept it, or even to comprehend it. It was an ordinary morning, during his second year at Hogwarts, when a letter brought him the news. Mr. Hagrid, his father, had lost his life. We cannot know with certainty what had happened. Perhaps an accident. Perhaps merely another victim of the tragic outbreak of dragon pox in those years. What is certain is that once again, after the abandonment of his mother Fridwulfa, Rubeus found himself alone. Alone as never before. But life, indifferent to grief, was forced to continue its own course.
I'm so sorry, Rubeus.
It was Hagrid's third year at Hogwarts, when everything began to change. During one of the students' usual visits to Hogsmeade, he encountered a stranger.
Young man.
Very little is known about him, except that he was a man from distant lands,
Come closer.
wrapped in travel-worn robes and speaking in half-finished stories. What is known for certain is that, from this stranger, young Rubeus received a gift, an egg of extraordinary size, from which sometime later a small and fragile creature would emerge. A young acromantula cub that the Gryffindor, with eyes filled with a love a mother might feel for her child, would name Aragog. Unsure how the other students or the professors would perceive his new friend, Hagrid decided it was best to keep him hidden in a forgotten cupboard in the dungeons of the castle.
You'll be safer here.
There, he fed it scraps, taken quietly from the feasts of the Great Hall, or on occasion, with treats that some elf would slip him from the kitchens. Hagrid visited little Aragog every day, and every evening he would say goodnight to him.
Sleep well,
No one knew,
me friend.
and for a time, nothing seemed to disturb that fragile secrecy, until the castle itself began to change. Students were found petrified in the corridors, which little by little were consumed by terror. The Chamber of Secrets cast its shadow over every corner of the school. According to legend, it was a place said to house a creature whose role was to cleanse the school of those deemed unworthy. And so, even the moment when such rumors ceased to be mere rumors, when Myrtle Warren, a Muggle-born student, was found lifeless, panic spread through the castle. In the utmost confusion, a young and brilliant Slytherin prefect took an interest in the matter. Respected by the professors and admired by the other students, precise in everything he did, the young Tom Riddle was, for all of Hogwarts, a point of reference. It did not take long for the Slytherin, intrigued by Hagrid's daily and suspicious descents into the dungeons, to discover Aragog's existence. A dangerous, venomous acromantula hidden within the castle, ready to claim the lives of the most unsuspecting students, or of Muggleborns. With Riddle's discovery, the culprit behind all those attacks was finally unmasked. Hagrid had unknowingly opened the Chamber of Secrets, unleashing the monster that dwelled within. It likely did not help Hagrid's case that he already carried a reputation for unpredictability. Rumors circulated easily at Hogwarts, and Riddle himself seemed more than willing to shape them. Whispers of a boy who tried to raise werewolf cubs beneath his bed, and who wandered into the Forbidden Forest to wrestle trolls with reckless enthusiasm. Whether true or grotesquely inflated, these stories clung to Hagrid like evidence, reinforcing the image of a careless boy playing with forces he could not control. Only many years later, the young Harry Potter, in his second year at Hogwarts, would discover that this version of events was far from the truth. But by then, the story had already been written. Only Albus Dumbledore seemed not to believe in Hagrid's guilt, and it was he who, once the accusations were made, managed to help Hagrid save Aragog before it was captured, allowing it to escape into the Forbidden Forest. If Tom Riddle was praised for his intuition, his service to the school, his ability to uncover what others had missed, the fate awaiting Hagrid was far more bitter. Although it was established that the young Gryffindor's intentions were neither malicious nor intentional, a student had lost her life, and Headmaster Dippet, under pressure from the Ministry, was forced to expel him. No possibility of appeal. His wand was snapped. The life of Rubeus Hagrid as a wizard, in some way, came to an end that day. But the course of events, at times, takes an unexpectedly different turn. Occurrences that at first glance seem tragic can later reveal themselves as both fatal and salvific. Albus Dumbledore, who at that point in history had not yet defeated Gellert Grindelwald in duel, and who would later become one of the greatest wizards history would remember, already enjoyed a reputation far above the ordinary. Therefore, at least in part, he managed to win his battle for the one he would consider one of the kindest people he had ever met in his life. Headmaster Dippet agreed to grant young Hagrid the possibility to remain at Hogwarts, not as a student, but as something different. The boy would begin a long and difficult apprenticeship, a unique and particular education, which in a sense would shape the person we all still remember today. Rubeus Hagrid, Keeper of Keys and Grounds at Hogwarts.
Of umbrellas, phoenixes, and motorcycles.
The years passed, and the Wizarding War, at last, had come to an end. Albus Dumbledore, following Armando Dippet, had taken his place as headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. After a long apprenticeship under the aging gamekeeper Og, now nearing retirement, Hagrid, having finally reached adulthood, was ready to assume the role for which he had been so carefully prepared. Alongside the quieter duties of daily life, opening the entrance gates to welcome visitors in and out of the school grounds, and escorting new students on their very first arrival at Hogwarts, there were also aspects of the role that carried a different kind of energy, such as regular patrols through the depths of the Forbidden Forest, ensuring that the flora and fauna of Hogwarts remained in balance, each following its natural course. On every journey, Hagrid carried with him a pink umbrella, through which he was once again able to perform magic. There is no official confirmation of its true nature, yet many have long suspected that the umbrella concealed something far more significant, that it was, in fact, the very wand that had once been snapped by the Ministry following his expulsion, repaired somehow. And in the known world, there exists only one wand capable of such magic, the Elder Wand. Once wielded by Gellert Grindelwald during the darkest years of the war, it had eventually passed into the hands of the man who defeated him, Albus Dumbledore. And so, with a ministry that was perhaps unaware, or perhaps simply willing to look the other way, Rubeus Hagrid was still, in his own way, a wizard. Not a skilled one, not a precise one, but a wizard nonetheless. And somewhere one might imagine his father would have been proud. They were, in their own quiet way, happy years. But as always, darkness finds a way to return. With the declaration of war against the entire wizarding world, when the Dark Lord's war reached its height, events began to unfold with unsettling speed. Hagrid, still marked by the tragedy that had followed the opening of the Chamber of Secrets, did not hesitate to join the Order of the Phoenix, an organization founded by Albus Dumbledore to oppose Lord Voldemort and his followers, never officially sanctioned by a ministry too fearful and too compromised to act with clarity or resolve. During those years, the Dark Lord gathered to his cause not only witches and wizards, but creatures of a darker nature as well, among them giants, something that struck Hagrid deeply. Young witches and wizards he had seen grow during his early years as gamekeeper, people he had come to know, to trust, members of the Order itself, began to fall, one after another, until that fateful night, the 31st of October, 1981. On that Halloween night, Lily Evans and James Potter lost their lives, but not their child. Harry survived, in a way no one could fully understand. The Dark Lord, rather than claiming victory, had fallen. Was the war truly over? Hagrid had no time to wonder. Dumbledore had entrusted him with a task of the utmost importance, perhaps the most important of his entire life. He made his way at once to Godric's Hollow, to the ruins of the Potter home, where he found a fellow member of the Order, as broken by grief as he was himself. Sirius Black, Harry's godfather. Sirius was reluctant to let the child go. He knew where the boy was to be taken. To Muggle relatives he did not trust, perhaps could never trust. But in the end, Hagrid managed to reassure him. He reminded Sirius that this had been Dumbledore's plan, and Dumbledore, more often than not, understood what others could not.
Take my motorbike,
Sirius said at last.
Go on. Get him somewhere safe. Fly.
And so Hagrid did. Mounted on that strange Muggle vehicle, altered through magic, he rose into the night sky with the child in his arms, carrying him away from the only home he had ever known, until at last he reached Privet Drive. Albus Dumbledore was waiting, and with him, Minerva McGonagall. A single tear fell from Hagrid's eyes. Would the boy be safe? Would he be cared for? For a moment he thought again of the words he had spoken to Sirius. Then, drawing a quiet breath, he chose to trust Dumbledore, as he always had, as Dumbledore, in turn, had always chosen to trust him. 10 years can pass more quickly than one might imagine. The small child Hagrid had once carried through the night had grown, and on the day he was sent once more to find him, this time to deliver his letter of admission to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Hagrid could not have felt prouder. Before him stood the son of James and Lily, ready to take the step that would finally make him a wizard in his own right.
Of stone, hippogriffs, and tournaments.
From that autumn onward, with Harry's arrival at the school, strange events seemed to follow in quick succession. In that very first year, Hagrid was entrusted with the transfer of the Philosopher's Stone from Vault 713 at Gringotts to Hogwarts, where it would be kept under the careful watch of Albus Dumbledore, who already suspected that Lord Voldemort might one day return. Drawing upon his knowledge of magical creatures, Hagrid arranged for a particularly unusual guardian. From Greece, he acquired a magnificent three-headed dog, whom he named Fluffy, and placed it at the trapdoor leading to the stone. It was, in its way, both a clever and a flawed solution. For all his strengths, Hagrid's trusting nature left him open to deception. And so it was that he revealed, to a mysterious stranger, the secret to calming the creature. A stranger who had first gained his trust by offering him yet another rare and dangerous gift, an egg. From it would hatch a Norwegian ridgeback, a dragon Hagrid would name Norbert, bringing with it no small amount of trouble for both him and the young Harry Potter. Only later would it become clear that the stranger in question had been Quirinus Quirrell, already consumed by the will of Voldemort, who had taken hold of him like a parasite. And once again, the Dark Lord was defeated, for a time. The following year, the Chamber of Secrets was opened once more, after nearly half a century, and once again, Muggle-born students were found petrified within the castle walls. The Ministry, proving itself once more unprepared in the face of a threat it neither understood nor wished to confront, turned its attention back to Hagrid. His past, never truly forgotten, made him an easy suspect. Even the word of Albus Dumbledore was not enough to prevent it. Hagrid was taken to Azkaban. There, he remained for a time, until Harry Potter, guided in part by Hagrid's own words, "Follow the spiders," uncovered the truth behind the attacks. Once again, it was Voldemort who stood at the center of it all. Hagrid was released, and with the Chamber of Secrets finally closed, the weight of his past began, at last, to loosen its grip, as though something long unresolved had finally been allowed to rest. The following year, with his chest filled with pride, and after the resignation of Sylvanus Kettleburn, Hagrid was appointed Professor of Care of Magical Creatures. For the first time, he was no longer simply the keeper of the grounds, but a teacher, a guide, a man entrusted with passing on what he loved most. And yet, as so often in his life, things did not remain simple for long. During one of his very first lessons, a young Slytherin student, Draco Malfoy, ignored Hagrid's warnings and insulted a hippogriff. The creature, Buckbeak, reacted as its nature demanded, striking back. What followed was swift and unforgiving. Under pressure from Lucius Malfoy, the Ministry ordered the execution of the creature, and once again, Hagrid found himself powerless before a system that seemed always ready to condemn what it did not understand. It was Harry, alongside Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, who managed to set things right. Buckbeak would live. And then, the Triwizard Tournament arrived, a year unlike any other. Throughout the months that followed, Hagrid played an essential role behind the scenes. He assisted Charlie Weasley in handling the dragons for the first task, creatures as dangerous as they were magnificent. It was Hagrid who, at the suggestion of Professor Moody, revealed them to Harry in advance, offering him a chance to survive what lay ahead. At the same time, he devoted himself to a peculiar and rather hazardous project for his students, the breeding of blast-ended scroots, creatures unpredictable even by Hagrid's standards, later used within the maze of the third task. But beyond the tournament, something else began to take shape.
You must be
A connection
Rubeus.
between Hagrid and Olympe Maxime, the imposing headmistress of Beauxbaton. There was a quiet understanding between them, a shared presence, and perhaps the fragile beginning of something more. They danced together during the Yule Ball, and for a moment, Hagrid allowed himself to hope. He confided in her, spoke of his past, of what he was, believing she might understand. But when he revealed his giant heritage, something shifted. Madame Maxime denied it, rejected even the suggestion, and in doing so, distanced herself from him entirely. For Hagrid, it was a wound that cut deeper than he could easily show. Yet the year had not finished testing him. Hidden in plain sight, Rita Skeeter had been listening. In her animagus form, she overheard Hagrid's confession, and soon after, his story was twisted and printed in the Daily Prophet. What followed was cruel, but familiar. Judgment, fear, rejection. Letters filled with hatred began to arrive. Voices of a world that had never truly accepted him now grew louder than ever. And Hagrid withdrew. He retreated into his hut, isolating himself from the very place that had once given him purpose. For a time, his role as professor was taken over by Wilhelmina Grubbly Plank, while Hagrid, overwhelmed and humiliated, even attempted to resign. But once again, he was not left alone. Dumbledore refused to accept his resignation, and it was Harry, Ron, and Hermione who went to him, who reminded him of who he was and why he mattered. Slowly, Hagrid returned, not because the world had changed, but because, once again, someone had chosen to stand beside him.
Of giants, family, and heart.
By the end of that same school year, as the Triwizard Tournament drew to its tragic conclusion, the death of Cedric Diggory marked something far greater than a single loss. It marked the return of Lord Voldemort, and with it, the beginning of the Second Wizarding War. When Albus Dumbledore confirmed what had happened, he did not hesitate. He sent Hagrid and Olympe Maxime as emissaries to the giant colonies of northeastern Minsk, in the hope of persuading the giants not to align themselves with Voldemort in the coming conflict.
Listen to me.
With them, they brought gifts of rare exceptionality.
I beg you.
A helmet forged by goblins and Gubrathian fire. A flame that had been enchanted to burn forever without ever dying. At first, their efforts seemed to bear fruit. Carcus, the Gur, the title given to the leader of a giant tribe, appeared willing to listen, and a fragile understanding was formed. But peace in that place was never meant to last. Two Death Eaters, dispatched by Voldemort for the same purpose, had already begun to move in the shadows, manipulating from within a rebellion led by Golgomath, a giant far more brutal, far more aligned with the ideology of violence. He challenged Carcus, and in a single act of sudden brutality, beheaded him, taking his place as leader. From that moment, everything collapsed. Golgomath aligned himself openly with the Death Eaters, and for Hagrid and Maxime, there was no longer any hope of diplomacy. They were forced to flee, barely escaping with their lives, but the journey did not end there. In the aftermath, Rubeus uncovered a truth that had long been buried. His mother, Friedwulfa, whom he had not seen since the age of 3, had long since died. But even more shocking was the discovery that she had given birth to another son, a half-brother, Grob, a giant smaller than the others, ridiculed and mistreated within his own kind, lost and dangerous in ways even Hagrid could not fully control. But he would not leave him there. He was all that remained of his family. He would protect him. He would take care of him. He would bring him to Hogwarts. Partway through the school year, Hagrid returned from his mission for Dumbledore, bringing Grob with him into the hidden edges of the Forbidden Forest. The endeavor was anything but easy. Despite the abuse he had previously suffered at the hands of his own kind, the giant would continually attempt to return to his old camp, only for his brother to force him across England against his will. Even that difficult year, with Dolores Umbridge at the head of the school, eventually drew to a close. And as the months passed, and thanks in part to an unexpected bond formed with the young Hermione Granger, Grop's belligerent temper began to improve day by day. The war in the meantime had reached its peak. Darkness stood poised to finally seize control. With the tragic death of Albus Dumbledore the following year, all seemed lost. It was a grief Hagrid had not felt since that distant second year at school, when he learned that his father would leave him forever. Yet he clenched his teeth and held his head high, refusing to give in, ever, exactly as Dumbledore had urged him to do, exactly as he would have wanted. And so, Hagrid was among the 13 members of the Order of the Phoenix, led by Alastor Moody, tasked with moving Harry Potter from the Dursleys' home before his 17th birthday, when the magical protection that had kept him safe until then would finally expire. Knowing that any Death Eaters watching would assume the most skilled Auror would be escorting the real Harry, Hagrid was instead given the crucial responsibility of protecting him in the sidecar of Sirius Black's motorcycle. At Hogwarts, Hagrid continued his duties as gamekeeper and as Professor of Care of Magical Creatures, and, at the request of the new headmaster, Severus Snape, he was placed in charge of students assigned detention. Detention with Hagrid consisted of work in the Forbidden Forest, far safer than detention with Amicus and Electo Carrow, the two Death Eaters who, alongside Snape, now held control of the school. During the final battle against the forces of darkness, the one that would come to be known as the Battle of Hogwarts, Hagrid, of course, took part, fighting alongside the fury of his brother Grawp. And in the end, despite the pain, despite the darkness, despite the tears, Voldemort was defeated. This time, for real. The war was over. The sun had risen once more, warmer, broader, and more welcoming than before. And Rubeus Hagrid knew that among all those ruins there lived something far greater and deeper than sight alone could ever capture. A kind of living spirit, a pulse of meaning he realized had filled his days since that distant 1st of September, when he had arrived at Hogwarts for the very first time. The awareness that there was so much beauty in this world, so much worth fighting for, so much worth rebuilding, brick by brick, into something better. Perhaps in the end, that was what magic truly was. The same magic Albus Dumbledore had always seen in him, when no one else could, not even Hagrid himself. And so, Hagrid rolled up his sleeves and got back to work once more. After all, there was no time to waste. He was the keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, and he always would be.
And so, my dear wizards, witches, muggles, and squibs, Hagrid's story teaches us that no matter how heavy life's burdens may be, loyalty, passion, and heart can transform a cruel fate into something truly extraordinary. Now, do excuse me, but I have an urgent matter with the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. That must be...
Mr. Pendragon, open this door!
I am, as ever, your charming wizard, Quentin Pendragon, always here ready to welcome you to a new, dazzling, and utterly spellbinding episode.